Hi, everyone. Well, I'm very pleased to welcome back a guest. He's been on the show once before. He is the, media liaison for the Surrey Police. I think I got the title right. Ian MacDonald, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure for sure. So one of the things I want to ask you about is, like, there was a time when we heard a lot about gangs, especially in Surrey, and we don't, at least I don't hear anything anymore. So are there a lot of gangs? If so, what do the police do about it?
Yeah, regrettably, I'm going to have to inform you that, yes, there are gangs in Surrey, and those gangs don't just stay in Surrey. It's people might have heard of the Lower Mainland gang conflict, and certainly it's an affliction through all communities, and it's intrinsically tied to the drug trade.
Right.
So regrettably, as long as there are things that people can profit from, as long as there are ways in which human beings can exploit others, there is going to be criminality and there are going to be gangs. I think what's unique to the West Coast experience, to the Canadian, British Columbia experience, is that gangs in other parts of the world tend to be people who are disenfranchised, might even be like new immigrant populations. There can be racial divides amongst gangs. What we find is the common denominator in British Columbia is money. So you will find that your gangs and your gangsters are across the spectrum in terms of ethnicity, are across the spectrum in terms of social stratification, in terms of their neighborhoods and all those other things. In fact, some rival gangsters live on the same streets. But what's the common thread is that they're making money and they're looking to profit and exploit others in the making of that money.
Right. So how do you handle that?
Well, I mean, I guess the big picture is we try to do two things predominantly. One is enforcement. And let's be honest, at the end of the day, when you're catching people after they've committed a crime, you're not really creating a lot of public safety while the instances, the shootings, the drive-by shootings, the intimidation is taking place. It's more of an after effect. And maybe, if there's proper sentencing, if you take a person off the streets, maybe if you create awareness about what the person is doing, there could be some pay it forward benefits from that. That said, you really want to try to defeat the feeder streams. You want to protect youth from being recruited into gangs. You want to protect communities from these drive-by shootings, from these acts of violence, from intimidation, from all of those things, and to a certain extent from at least the harder, more illicit street drugs. You try to create some protection to that. And the only way you can do that is through prevention. And so, to be honest, that's a tougher nugget to crack. When you talk about enforcement, individual does something that's against the law, you arrest them. There's a procedure for that. Mm-hmm. But actually mapping out how you are going to positively influence maybe elementary school kids so that they don't maybe in middle school start hanging out with the wrong people or making bad choices is a much tougher thing to try to get a hold of. But from my opinion and from my standpoint, is way more worthwhile. Because if you think about each individual making bad choices, the impact isn't just on them. It's also on their families, it's on their friends, it's on the community. And a single individual, and this has been demonstrated time and time again, can create a lot of havoc. And so if you can make a person see that their choices matter, that they matter as individuals, and that they have self-worth, a lot of times that investment will not just help them stay clear of gangs, but will make them a positive and more whole human being as they move throughout their lives.
For sure. Has there ever been a case where somebody that was in a gang decides to get out that you know of?
Yeah, in fact, I guess there are numerous examples of that. Unfortunately, for those who stay in the gang, the trajectory is either you're going to end up in jail, you're going to end up seriously injured or possibly killed, or you're going to become an even more hardened, hardcore gangster as you move forward in life. Right. For those who have maybe seen the light or maybe come up against death or seen their friends die and said, enough of this, and have made the change, a small portion of those actually start working with outreach groups, sometimes work with police agencies, and try to be part of that prevention campaign to dissuade others from making the same mistakes that they did.
Right. Yeah. Now, just thinking on, you've had a very long career in police force, right? Have you personally been involved with trying to control or prevent crime, gang?
Yeah, in fact, for 2 years, I was involved in a really interesting project. Basically, what we did was we used a middle school as kind of a test site or a pilot project. And this was coordinated with the school district. So we had complete buy-in from the school district, and we insisted on buy-in from parents as well. And so what we were looking for were kids that were demonstrating that perhaps they were at risk based on their behavior at school and sometimes in their homes.
Mm.
And so all the referrals came from the school administration, the school counselors, the school teachers, or from parents themselves. And we started with a group of about 20 young people, all middle school kids, all from the same school. And we just wanted to see if we influenced them positively, and I'll detail what that meant,
Right.
whether that would create a different outcome. And so we had basically a 2-year timeline in which to assess whether this infusion of positivity would in fact make a difference or not. And so that positivity was, we would partner them with what we considered to be a mentor who was doing really well. A younger person, so in their 20s, partnering with a teen and maybe spending some time together. And it could be time on the basketball court, it could be time at the library, it could be time at the go-karts. Whatever it was to tell that young person that they mattered and to give them some time. And so I always say, it's corny, but I'm corny. But I always say that if you want to tell a young person that you love them, the way you spell love is T-I-M-E. The investment of time is the clearest demonstration to young people that you care.
Right.
And so the proof was somewhat in the pudding. The 20 kids that were identified as being at risk, the majority of those kids had been sent to the principal's office or to counseling or had been suspended through the first 6 months of the program. At about the 6-month mark, I was approached by the administration, and there was a new vice principal that had come to the school. And he said, "Ian, I'm aware of the program, but I don't know the names of any of the kids." And I said, "Well, that's really odd." I said, "They're all on a list." And he goes, no, I know their names, but I don't know them because they haven't been sent to my office a single time.
Oh.
So we started to reap the benefits, the positive benefits in terms of that behavior shift
Mm.
within 6 months. And so we didn't know what was going to happen. We thought that, you sprinkle positivity on anything.
Yes.
We thought more positivity will grow, but we did not anticipate that it would be that stark and that dramatic a change. But it demonstrated to me that if you show kindness to somebody, if you pay attention to somebody, and if you give some time to an individual, regardless of whatever the wobble they have going on in their lives, it can provide stability that maybe whatever else is happening in their life cannot.
Marvelous. Yeah. A number of years ago, I saw this program. It might have been in the US, I can't remember, where they took young people that were in trouble to the jail to interact with prisoners.
Yeah.
And it had, not for everybody, but I know it had a great impact on some of them. Is that something that is done here?
So I'm aware of it too. There was kind of this Scared Straight program that was like in the late 70s, early 80s. I have to tell you that I'm not a proponent of that.
Okay.
And it's a little bit like on occasion throughout the course of my career, I would have a parent that would come down to the police station with their kid by the ear, and they'd say, "Can you throw my son in the cell for half an hour and tell him that what he did was wrong?" And I think that kind of negative enforcement does not work as well. And I think studies have borne it out that it doesn't work as well, and it's not as effective as positive reinforcement.
Right.
And so I'd always say, well, all you're doing is you're shifting sort of the punishment detail away from you as the parent onto the police. And at the end of the day, we want your child to think of the police as a partner in the community, as a friend.
Yes.
We don't want your kid to think of the police as the person that's going to be judge, jury, and executioner that throws you into a jail cell. We
Right.
hope that your kid would never experience that.
Right.
So I know in the early stages, many people who were attempting to change behavior were trying to do that scared straight model. I'll tell you, my position is the antithesis of that.
Right.
I think that the way that we connect with people is to show them that, that we have the ability to make good decisions, bad decisions, and that we maybe as positive mentors know a path to those good decisions and can lead others in that direction as well.
So in that same vein, I remember another thing is seeing a reformed gang member or criminal speaking to a group of young people in a positive way. Like, look, I did this, but look, at now I am out of this, and this is why. And that, I think, is effective, correct?
Yeah, 100%. And when I say the scared straight model, I don't mean that we sugarcoat it. Like, I think that we have to, at a very young age, explain to kids that this is what'll happen if you go down that path. Like, we have to offer the reality of what gang life is, because we know that through gang recruitment, they're going to be told a whole bunch of things that are mostly fiction.
Right.
And so I think part of the program, regardless of what it is, if it's an outreach program, is you have to give the kids the reality of what they will face. But I think you have to support that in an environment where you say there are options. And there is a way that you can choose things other than that gang. Your family doesn't have to be the gang. And just because the people that maybe you're presently around are making bad decisions, you don't have to follow that lead. There are many in your community that are going the other way, and we can connect you with some of those people as well.
Yeah, for sure. Now, another subject, I'm going to change the topic if that's okay. Traffic safety.
Yeah.
Right. So how do you go about teaching people about traffic safety?
Well, this is again, really difficult. And so both of my kids are learning to drive. They're both L drivers right now. And so I spend quite a bit of time on the road with each of them. And the number of times that we actually see other drivers doing just unsafe behaviors. I mean, we probably spend more time talking about the unsafe behaviors of other drivers than we do focusing on the safe behaviors of my kids as they navigate their way through traffic. An unfortunate byproduct of the times and people having busy lives is they don't pay enough attention to what is a complex task in driving.
Right.
I mean, there are distractions all over the place. Let's admit it. Few of us can put our phones down for very long, but definitely with all of the things that are going on, not just in your mind, but in terms of technology around you, people need to focus on the primary task of hand that at the end of the day, when we look at loss of life and we look at casualties and we look at injuries, is astronomical compared to almost anything else in Canada. Including for police officers. One of the most dangerous situations you can be in as a police officer is at a traffic stop.
Yeah.
And it's not that the person that you stopped is necessarily going to be posing you a danger. It's that another driver won't be paying attention and they'll punt you down the road. And as a person who has been punted down the road a couple of times, I can tell you that when you're injured in a car crash, that can be either life altering or definitely it can certainly change your life for a period of time. And so that's what we try to communicate to drivers. And so oftentimes people think of traffic safety is, oh, cops are writing tickets. Cops are hitting quotas. Cops are doing this or cops are doing that. The bottom line is if the behavior didn't exist in the first place, if people didn't sort of breach those rules, there would be no consequence and there would be no ticket.
Right. I remember, when you talk about your young people with their L license, remember when my daughter, shortly after she got her license, she said she was a good driver. And I said, no, you're not. You have no experience,
Yep.
Just because you've been driving for 6 months and haven't had an accident doesn't make you a good driver. One of the things I find, because here in Chilliwack, anyway, there are a lot of seniors on the road, and a lot of them, I think, really should go back to learning all over again, because they're either too slow or too fast, or they'll stop inappropriately. Do you find a lot of that?
I think the way that I would approach it is I would say that I think everybody should look themselves in the mirror and question whether their skills are as sharp as they need to be.
Yeah.
And I would suggest, regardless of your age, if you were sincerely focused on the task at hand, not on, oh, I have to be at this place at 1 o'clock and I'm running behind, or, oh, I already had to go back home because I forgot that important lunch bag that I was supposed to bring with me. If you actually just focused on the task at hand, and I would say, and maybe sprinkle a little bit of good manners. I don't know how else to put it on the road. Like the number of people, like I'm glad in one sense that people seem to be navigating roundabouts a bit better than when they were first introduced here on the West Coast, a little bit better. We don't have people going the opposite direction as commonly. But what I do notice is in those roundabouts, the number of people that have near misses, because even though it's clearly marked that you're supposed to yield to people that are in the roundabout, people are in such a rush and they think that the time and space that they have is enough to squeeze in. And all I'm saying is a little bit of driving courtesy would go a long way. So if people focused on the task at hand, maybe did a little bit of a self-evaluation, and then ultimately sprinkled courtesy on it, I think it would be a different driving experience.
Right.
But I will say this, like my wife was saying to me, and I'm not here to out my wife, but my wife has said as she gets older, she gets less comfortable in certain driving situations. She doesn't like driving bridges. She doesn't like driving in heavy traffic, and she doesn't like driving into downtown Vancouver.
Right.
So let's just take her as an example. If you are in that category where through time you're finding that you don't like driving as much, then you should find an alternative to that.
Yeah.
The alternative in my wife's case is I do the driving if there's a bridge involved. I do the driving if it means we're going into Vancouver. But I think a lot of other people, they know that they don't feel completely at ease in certain driving situations, and yet they still put themselves in.
Yeah, I had to make the tough decision of giving up driving. It's difficult because now I have to depend on other people because I'm alone, I'm a widow. But I was having these what they call retinal migraines, and I would be on the road. I remember the last time, and it comes on and I couldn't stay within the white lines. And I thought, oh my goodness, I shouldn't be on the road. It's as simple as that. It wasn't easy, but I did it. And I don't regret it for 1 minute. So, yeah.
No, and I commend you for doing it. I know that when my mother, who was also a widow, when it got to that point, because she had some brain cancer issues, that it wasn't safe for her to continue to drive, there was a bit of a wrestle because of the independence that would be lost through driving. But ultimately, I said, you know, if something happens while you're driving and now there's a greater chance of it because of the cancer issue, would you want to have, for example, your grandkids on the roadway in front of you when that takes place? And that seemed to turn the corner. But I do think it takes that self-reflection and a little bit of insight into your own abilities for people to ratchet back either how much they drive, where they drive, or whether they should be driving.
Yeah. And again, I don't regret for 1 minute having made that decision, you know. Well, I think we're going to end it there because I want to have you back on and talk about some other topics next time. Okay. So
thank you so much.
Yeah, well, thank you again for being here. I really, really appreciate it. And we just want to thank the audience. I hope you listened to what Ian MacDonald had to say. These are important things that we have to talk about and have to hear about. So thank you, everybody, for watching. Take care and peace out.
A sense of community, Chilliwack's a place to be. A sense of community where you're free. Rolling through the mountains, rolling through the valley, rolling through paradise with me. It's multicultural, you're sure to see it all. Chilliwack's the place to be, you'll see. Come party in the park, go dancing after dark. Chilliwack's the place to be, you'll see.